The Toy Box by Nicholas Horsburgh. "Wow! Beautiful!" said Matilda, as we looked at the house for the first time. "Wow! Scary," said I. The rambling mansion that stood before us seemed to tower into the sky. It was immense. It was old. And to me, it seemed spooky. "There's nothing scary about it. You'll have a great time here," said Father. "There's plenty to explore. I haven't seen the whole of it myself." Father, Mother, and Matilda went straight into the house, but I, a little less enthusiastic, followed in my own time. I caught up with the others in the spacious living room. "Your bedrooms are upstairs," announced Mother excitedly. "And there's a large room at the side of the house, on the ground floor, which you can use as a playroom." She led the way along a dark corridor, and we followed. The playroom was indeed large, but it seemed cold and damp. "We'll have it warmed up in no time, Tom," Father assured me, noticing that I had shuddered. He went on to explain, "Because no one has lived here for some time, the heating has been turned off. There's plenty to discover, and you'll have fun finding out where all the rooms are." An hour later, when we had been through the house from top to bottom, up staircases and down others, and in and out of umpteen rooms, we returned to the playroom. Our large toy box had been placed against the far wall of the room, and Matilda went straight to it to unpack some toys. She took out what she needed, and then, answering a call from Mother upstairs, ran off to find out why she was being summoned. I stood in silence, alone in the large room. It was then that I heard, for the first time, a feeble cry, followed by a long moan. It seemed to come from the box, but this was just not possible. "Perhaps a cat has entered the room," I thought to myself. "Or it's my imagination." I pulled a couple of toys from the box, but when I heard the cry again, I screamed, dropped the toy truck I had been holding, and fled. I found Matilda and Mother upstairs in my bedroom. My suitcase and a couple of boxes containing clothes, more toys, and books were lying on the floor beside the bed. Mother was unpacking a smaller case on the bed. I began to help her put away some of my clothes in a large cupboard that was standing against one wall. I paused by a window to look at the garden outside. It was bright and warm, and everything looked green and fresh. I wanted to be out there, not in this dark house with its cold, echoing rooms and strange sounds. "You're very quiet, Tom," said Mother. "Is something the matter?" "I don't like it here," I muttered. "Why ever not?" asked Mother, coming over to join me by the window. "It's cold and spooky," I replied, "and I don't like the noises it makes." "Noises?" asked Mother, astonished. "What noises?" "I heard some noises. Moaning, coming from our toy box," I replied. "Don't be silly," said Mother. "Come, let's go down and listen. Don't be such a scaredy cat. Matilda will come too, and I'll get Dad too, if you insist." We went downstairs and entered the playroom. We stood and listened. We heard nothing. "The sounds you heard must have come from outside," said Mother. "A gurgling pipe, perhaps." "No," I said with some force as I backed out of the room. "It was a cry, a moan. I'm sure." Over the next few days, we settled in. I should say the rest of the family settled in. I was far from settled. I heard the cries whenever I went into the playroom and approached the toy box, and each time I heard the cries, I screamed. But when the others came running to listen, there were no sounds at all. By the end of the week, everyone was most annoyed with me. They came running to the room whenever I screamed. My parents did not believe me and assumed I was making up the story to get their attention. My sister blamed me for the moodiness of my parents and said that we might lose the use of the room for our entertainment if I kept this up. One morning, determined not to scream, I plucked up the courage to enter the playroom. I had avoided it for 3 days, but now my mind was made up. I would get to the bottom of the mystery and not scream. The curtains in the room were drawn, so it was dark and musty in there. As I entered the room, I felt a draft of air. The windows were firmly shut, so was the front door. Wondering where the draft was coming from, I drew open the curtains. Sunlight flooded into the room, but it still felt chilly. The light, however, had given me some courage. I approached the toy box quietly and cautiously. As I drew near, I felt the breeze again. And then I stopped in my tracks. A moan floated up from the box, but I held my breath and did not cry out. I backed silently out of the room and, once in the hall, hastened to find my mother.